Hey, it's Nate here, and welcome back to Guitar Foundations. Warming up at the beginning of each practice session is something that's very important, and I admittedly don't always do it, but I should. There are a couple of reasons why it's important. Number one, just getting the blood flowing and physically warming up will help prevent any injuries, or at least keep them to a minimum. Things like tendonitis, elbow pain, wrist pain, things like that. I've heard some horror stories of like people snapping tendons or getting really bad tendonitis from not warming up playing the guitar, so don't let that be you. The second reason it's important is that it puts you in a better mental state to do some heavier practicing and some learning. Let's face it, when we sit down at the guitar, starting is not always the easiest part, like the beginning of practice session, because we don't like to feel like we're bad at anything. So if we tackle something that we're not good at right away, we're gonna feel like, man, this is really discouraging. So just playing something that you know first for just like 2 or 3 minutes can really be a big part of warming you up physically and then mentally as well. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, Nate, we're like 10 lessons into this course now. Why didn't you talk about this at the beginning? Well, as a guitar player, you need to have something that you can already play in order to warm up. That's why I waited until now. So just make sure to incorporate a warm up into your daily routine. It'll get you in that mental state that's good for learning, and you'll be physically warmed up as well. So first off, I just want to go through some actual physical stretches that just feel really good on your arms and hands in general, and they get you one step closer to being warmed up too. What I usually do, and this helps prevent any elbow or forearm kind of injuries, because I have had problems with my left and right elbows before, mostly my left one from playing, and a little bit of my right one from picking. But if you just take your palm, stick it out in front of you like this, and pull back a little, just gently. It shouldn't hurt, but you should feel a stretch in the underside of your forearm, or just hold it there for 20 seconds or so. That's a really good stretch. And it feels great. There's really no reason to not do this. And you can do the opposite of that too, to stretch the top out of your forearm. And this is a really critical one for me for my elbow. If I feel any pain or even the hint of like something might be creeping back into my elbow as far as pain, then take a few minutes and just do this and hold it out. This is kind of the extreme version of this. You can just hold it without making a fist, or if you want a bigger stretch, make a fist and just pull down gently. Now, it shouldn't hurt, but it should. You should feel the pull. Same thing on the other hand. Just lightly, and you'll know if you're doing it too hard. It shouldn't have any pain. Same thing. And again, you can not have your fist there if you don't want as intensive a stretch, but this one has really helped me in the past. So that's a good first one. And I hate to say it, but the older I get, the more important these types of warm-ups are before a practice session. I really notice the older I get. I turned 40 this year, so doing this has become more and more important to me. Another one that you can do is to just take your hands out in front of you, make a fist, hold it there for a little while, and then do the opposite. Put your hands out as far as they'll go this way, and just gently back and forth for a few reps. This gets to be like working out, just to get the blood flowing. And my favorite one out of all of these, and I only do this one on my left hand, but it is beneficial for both the left and the right hand, is just to take each finger on your picking hand, on your fretting hand, and just knead it out with your other hand like this. It feels really good, and it gets you libered up. I usually do it 2 or 3 times for each finger. And if you're older, this feels really good. Or if you've had an injury. I have an injury in this finger where I had a really bad jammed finger multiple times from like baseball and football, basketball, things like that. And it feels really good on that. But just do that to each finger. You can do both hands, or you can do just the fretty hand. It's up to you. But I find this one helps a lot for me. And you'll feel things kind of moving around and maybe even getting a crack in there or something like that. Now for some actual playing for warming up. So what do you play when you warm up on the guitar? Basically, it's anything that you know that you feel confident with. So you've already been learning a lot about power chords, so I would take that as your like level 1 playing warm up, and just move some power chords around the fretboard. Doesn't have to be fancy. Doesn't even have to be musical. You can just go. The important thing is that you get your hands on the guitar, start playing some stuff, you get the blood flowing, and get your mind in a state to where, like, okay, it's time to do some practicing on the guitar. Now, I do also have a specific warm-up exercise for you to play through, but in order to play through it or learn it, you're going to need to know how to read tab just a little bit. Now, if you've never heard of tab, that's short for tablature, and it's just kind of a shorthand or an alternative to standard notation on the guitar. It's a little bit easier to read, and it kind of looks like notation, but it has 6 lines instead of 5. The bottom line represents the low E string. That may seem a little bit backwards to you, but that's the way it is. Bottom line is the low E string. Top line is the high E string, and you know all the ones, fill them in between there. And if you look at this little example I have for you, you're going to see some stacked numbers on top of each other. Those numbers are just telling you which frets to put your fingers on those particular strings. This first little example is just a D chord. You can see it stacked there. You can see the low 2 lines have nothing on them, so you don't play them at all. The D string has a 0. The G string has a 2. The B string has a 3. And then the top E string has a 2 on it. And if you look at it, that's a D chord. Anytime you see numbers stacked on top of each other on tab, you're looking at a chord. The next measure over on this tab has numbers coming sequentially horizontally, and that's like a lead line or something like that, or a melody. And for this one, on the high E string, you have a 3. On the high E string, a 2. Then a 0, which means to play that string open. And then a 3 on the next string over the B. So that's how you would play that. And those are the basics of how to read tab. We'll get into more of that later on as we go throughout this course. If you need to pick up a copy of the Guitar Foundations book, just go over to natesavage.com so you can see everything written out for you there. So this warm-up exercise I have for you is going to come in very handy as you learn more chords on the guitar. It's going to help build dexterity in your fretting hand. And all it is going, and I'll give you a quick rundown of it, and then we'll get into more detail. I'll show you how to play it. Not very musical, but it does wonders for building coordination and dexterity with his hand. All I'm doing is starting off with my first finger on the 3rd fret of the D and my 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the G string. And you can work on this exercise with any 2 fingers or any finger pair. You can do 1st and 2nd finger, 2nd, 3rd, 3rd and 4th. You can do 1st and 3rd, 1st and 4th, 3rd and 4th. 2nd and 4th, any combination or finger pair of 2 fingers. But the idea is to start off right here, index finger on the 3rd fret, 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the G, and then just switch back and forth. So index finger goes to the 3rd fret of the G, 2nd finger switches to the 4th fret of the D, and just sit there for a while, going back and forth between those 2 notes. And you can either strum those like this, or I like to use my pick and my middle finger here to just kind of pluck them. If you're not using a pick, use your thumb and maybe your index finger there. It's up to you. But once you feel comfortable there, widen this out. Put your index finger on the 3rd fret of the A string and your middle finger on the 4th fret of the B string. And then switch them. Index finger goes to the 3rd fret of the B, middle finger goes to the 4th fret of the A. Just switch back and forth between there. Do that for a while. Once you're feeling comfortable with that, expand it even further. So outside E strings, 1st finger gets the 3rd fret of the low E, 2nd finger gets the 4th fret of the high E. And then just switch them. Work your way back in, A and B strings. Then work your way back in again, 2 middle strings. And you can do that with any finger combination. You can do it with your 2nd, 3rd fingers. And some combinations that you might not readily think of are when you skip a finger. When you do that, like if you use your 1st and 3rd fingers, you have to leave a fret in between. It just makes it a little bit more congruent and a little bit easier to do this exercise. So middle 2, then expand it out, then out to the E's, bring it back in, and back to the middle 2. And the toughest one is definitely the pinky and 4th fingers. Expand it out. And then this one, high E strings, low E string, that one's really tough, but it's a really good coordination builder. So as you move forward and learn new things on the guitar, you could throw whatever you want into the mix as far as a warm-up. Often, I will do like a chromatic scale. I know we haven't gone over any lead guitar stuff, but my point is that as you learn new things, as you get good at them and get them down, you can add those as your warm-up. The critical thing is that you actually warm up to get your body ready and your mind ready to do some heavier lifting with the practice session that you have coming for you. Okay, here are your assignments for this lesson. Number 1, try out the stretches that we went over. Number 2, incorporate 1 or 2 stretches into your daily practice routine. Number 3, pick anything that you can already play and incorporate it into your daily routine as a warm-up. It can be anything, power chords, a little bit of strumming, if you know a scale or something like that, or just some open chords. Those are great too. Number 4, experiment with a warm-up exercise that we went over using just your first and second fingers, that finger pair. Once you're feeling comfortable with that, you can expand it to any other finger group or finger pair that you like. And that's assignment number 5. Once you have 1 and 2 down, pick any other finger pair and use that warm-up exercise with those. All right, now that you know that you should be warming up and you have some things to play during a warm-up, the onus is on you. All you have to do is make sure to implement and actually do the warm-up at the beginning of each practice session. And it doesn't have to be long, 3 to 5 minutes is fine. The farther along you go and the more you learn, you will want to update what you use for a warm-up, just because you probably don't want to be warming up with the same power chords for years on end. Whatever you get down last week, use that as a warm-up so you can keep that fresh and polished up. If you have any questions about this, just email me, nate@natesavage.com, or you can leave a comment here on this page. I'll get back to you there. Now, if you're having really serious trouble with any of these individual areas, you can always go to natesavage.com and schedule a private lesson with me. The first one is complimentary, so there's no risk. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get the word out about this course. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.